Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with the next installment of The Letter, and we are playing as Rebecca, who is running into Luke, so good times are probably ahead. Let's just get right in there. However, all those good vibes disappear into thin air when I run headfirst into Luke. There's really something in this man. Regardless of how much my opinion of him has changed over the span of a few hours, he simply blasts through every good impression people have of him without care or thought. He doesn't even need to open his mouth, his mere presence does it. In all honesty, I think he's the kind of guy only a mother can love.
You're still here?
Obviously. Who do you think standing in front of you?
An ass.
Oh, come on, Daisy. You've done better than that. Losing your touch?
Luke, I don't have time for this. I'm heading home, and your face is the last thing I want to see before I leave. What do you want?
Belatedly, I noticed his hand. Partly raised, almost poised for a knock. At a slight lift of an eyebrow, he quickly drops it to his side and turns to Kylie. She's standing a few steps away from him, holding her hands behind her back and toeing at something on the floor with the tip of her shoe. Then he proceeds to make vague gestures at me and the child. He resembles a fish flopping for air with the way he's moving his arms, though I think he's trying to urge her to speak up.
Munchkin, I thought you wanted to tell her something.
You do it, Tio.
This wasn't my idea, darling.
Don't worry. I won't tell Tio what you told me the other day. And this morning.
Luke exhales, rolling his eyes at the ceiling, and we've been praying for the universe to grant him more patience. He knows a losing battle when he sees one. He may act worse than a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum at times, but he's no match for an actual child. Nothing better than being served a dose of his own medicine, huh? Once his frustration has been promptly let out, he points a rude finger at me. I do my best to stare the offending digit down, but I can already hear the demand before it's even out of his lips.
You, come with us.
What makes you think I will?
Because little Rugrat here is upset and worried, and it's your bloody fault. I've no idea what happened this morning, but if you don't come with us, I won't be hearing the end of it from her. So do me a favor, Daisy, and just be glad I'm inviting you.
You're asking for a favor, and you can't be bothered to be polite? I don't know. It's been a really busy day for me. I kind of miss my couch.
Daisy, you just
These two really do make kind of a cute couple.
say yes.
I mean, if it doesn't work out with Hana, I kind of ship these two. A pause follows, almost too dramatic. Afterwards, his face twists into something between a grimace and a smile. As it happens, he appears like he's in a lot of physical pain. You'd think the man is getting an aneurysm from simply being polite.
Please?
Tio said it'll be his treat.
What? I said no such thing, Munchkin. I only agreed to this because you requested it. I'm under no obligation to feed her.
I promise I'll be quiet the next time I visit.
She won't.
Oh, all right, but just one meal and make it the cheapest.
He and Ashton will get along famously on that department. I don't think him and Ashton are going to get along at all. On a different front, the offer of free dinner does sound enticing, however half-heartedly given it is. Mostly because Kylie has wisely put on her puppy eyes, and by the second, I find all my choices slipping away from
See,
me.
Miss Pink? It'll be fun. You don't have to feel sad anymore, okay?
Oh, well,
My boba buzzes from my pocket, cutting me mid-sentence, and for a second, I'm spared from the act of giving an answer I'll regret either way. Fishing the gadget out, I wave a hand at him and excuse myself. A disgruntled expression is on Luke's face before I turn away. I'd be lying if I said it didn't amuse me. He's as eager to be done with this as I am, but what can I do? Checking, a message from Ashton shows up. Hey Becca, I'll be around Salemville this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Isabella's place after. See ya. Oh. Just the usual. Unlike what he does to Zachary, Ashton has the decency to let us know when he's dropping by or he's in the area for some business, but you can't break into a girl's apartment. You get beat up. From the way it's phrased, it sounds to be the latter. Business? Boring. Either way, I'm glad he's at least aware of that boundary. Not that Isabella's ever going to let him leave the building unscathed, if he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. I cringe to imagine what she'll do to him. Sighing, I slip the gadget back to my pocket, but looking up to see Luke's utter impatience on his face, I now face a different dilemma. The two of them are still waiting, and knowing the kind of person Luke is, this is already a grand gesture of goodwill coming from him, all to please his godchild. His denials aside, it's easy to tell he's really fond of Kylie from his actions alone. I kinda hate to ruin
Well,
that.
Daisy, we're waiting here.
On the other hand, there's Ash. His message doesn't exactly imply he's going to wait, or he's expecting me to be there. But there are matters I hope to discuss with him in person, to put it simply. Housewarming party matters. With inviting Isabella out of the question, I only have Zachary and Ashton. Although the former has already made it clear he'll be busy this weekend, well, Ashton has been my first choice from the start. Well, Zach's at the party, I know that, so. Even if he detests attending gatherings like this, it's company that counts, we can be miserable together. That's the problem, isn't it? He hates them, and it's fairly likely his answer will be a flat no. I'd rather not hear that. If by some miracle he agrees to it, he'll probably be sulking the whole party. Am I gonna get a choice here? Because, like, I know she ends up at the party with Ashton. Or at least they're both there. Not really a tough choice when you put it like that, still. I'm gonna go. Tough choice, but I have to pick one. In the end, it's my own fondness for Kylie that wins out. I just want to see him, Luke, and Rebecca interact more. Chances are I'll only have to endure his presence for an hour or so. If it lasts more than that, I can make up an excuse, a sudden call from a friend, or things to work on. It doesn't seem so bad when I think of the pros and cons. At best, it'll be a quiet dinner. At worst, it'll be an awkward affair we're both eager to be rid of. I'm leaning more on the latter happening, hoping for the former, of course.
Okay, but only because Kylie asked.
Kylie's face instantly lights up. For the third time today, she tackles me into a hug before pulling away and dragging me by the hand towards the building's exit.
That's alright. I'm sure Tio doesn't mind. He let me pick where we're going to eat. Don't worry, it's just close.
Luke falls closely behind, and perhaps out of some desire to keep the dead arrow away, I can't resist throwing in a quip.
Keep your distance. You better not do anything funny, you hear?
It's not a quip.
I'm the one who should keep my distance. May I remind you who approached me first and what you did right after?
Oh, I remember it clearly. But perhaps it's you who needs a reminder. You seem to have never learned your lesson. Care we give it another try? Maybe this time it'll stick.
Maybe this time it'll stick. You think you're scary? I'll show you what's scary.
To my surprise, his tone lacks the usual sardonic note in it, and briefly I pause to stare at him. He quickly shuts his mouth right after and walks ahead of us. All talk and no trousers like the usual, and for the better part of our walk, except for Kylie's excited chatter, we don't speak. Somehow I have this strange feeling I'm already getting used to this kind of banter with him. Not sure if that's a good or bad thing. And amidst this newfound friendship, dare I call it that, Ashton's message lies forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Dinner date. Of all the places nearest to the skull, Kylie picks this one, and waiting for the food to be served is as awkward as I've imagined it would be. Not the bad sort, though. Pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. When he tries. So long as you're willing to look past the tactless remarks or we're not exchanging acerbic quips. It's clear he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going so far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once, I catch his frequent cheesed-off expression easing whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep. She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own, but it's easy to see some small part of him genuinely wants them. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to the nearby bookshelves. After having lost interest in the conversation, however, we both revert back to silence. On our own, we have little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, it does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with it that he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe. Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those. And besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. I'm quite sure he feels the same. So when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand while we wait for our respective meals. But it'll be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. Something to pull me away from this place. Someone. Ashton's probably at Salemwell by this time, working on whatever business he has there. Maybe if I make up an excuse and leave now, I can still catch him?
Cut that out. It's distracting.
My hand stills, holding the gadget awkwardly between us, and I'm arrested mid-pass by his bored tone. He's been quiet for a long minute now, after complaining about how appalling the tea they're serving here is. Before that, he has whined about how uncomfortable his chair is and tasteless decorations they have here. Previous to that, he has griped about how dull this place is, compared to the one he frequents on the upper-class side of things in the city. Well, I'm sorry for being a bunch of peasants, Your Majesty. Figures he'll lose patience soon, having already grumbled about almost everything his eyes can reach. It's just unfortunate he's turned to me now.
Why don't you just look somewhere else?
I can't. If I turn elsewhere, I might end up looking at the bobfuck right behind us.
The what? He's literally green.
Bobfuck? Do I even want to ask?
I don't want to hear it. If it's coming from out of his mouth, it can only be either rude or offensive.
Everything looks good. But have you seen the face? True horror.
Nobody has faces here.
What is wrong with you? You know, I frown about this in practice, but that mouth needs to be washed out with a particularly potent soap, preferably by your own mom.
A shame she isn't here,
For whatever reason, that puts an end to the talk right away. He returns to watching his godchild, who has found a particularly interesting picture book and is now poring over it while I turn back to my mobile. Still no message. Would it kill him to at least send a message? Check if I were home? Meanwhile, Luke's silence lasts all but 10 seconds.
What is it with the damn mobile? Are you on a curfew?
He's got the immature act down pat, I'll give him that. Seriously, how old is this guy? Actually, we don't know yet. Has he somehow been deprived of affection during childhood?
And what is it to you? I don't think it's any of your business what I do with it.
It is my business, all right? 1, I'm the one paying here. 2, I'm being forced to eat dinner in a place this stuffed and noisy. Lastly, it's been 10 minutes, the food isn't here, and I'm hungry. What you're doing with the mobile is annoying and distracting, when the least you can do is keep things entertaining while I suffer.
I'm distracting you from your hunger.
That's your problem? Shouldn't you be more worried about how this entire affair looks to other people?
Oh, I didn't realize this was one. You move fast, Daisy. You could have informed me first, you know. Had I known, I would have taken you someplace nicer. Certainly the kind with better food and plenty of good wine.
Why did I ever think this was a good idea? Did it ever occur to you how inappropriate this might look to everyone?
Why should I care? It's only inappropriate if you make it out to be. Relax. I won't do anything to make your boyfriend angry. He doesn't even need to know we dined out. It'll be our dirty little secret.
He's not my boyfriend.
The words come out with more force than I've intended. By the time I realize my slip-up, his lips are already spread in a sneer. Heat slowly crawls up my face.
Oh, so there is someone. You're so easy to read.
Briefly, his eyes search my face. I have no idea what he sees, nor do I care to know, but in the next second he barks out a laugh, displaying his amusement without reserve to everyone within earshot. In that moment, I know I've flipped a switch in him somewhere, and I've lost my chance to deny his assumptions. Do I even want to? Is that the reason why I've been so focused on my mobile, waiting for another message for him? For a reason to dump this awkward meeting to go after him?
Look how mottled you are. Now the nickname makes more sense. Shy Miss Pink and her cute little crush. The color suits you, by the way. It matches the hair.
It's not a crush.
It's a crush.
Classic denial. But in reality, you want him to be yours, and your every move is made to make him notice you. In fact, you don't want him to see you with another man in a non-professional capacity, because he might misinterpret it.
The same thing goes for you, doesn't it? Bloody, yours is even worse. What about your wife? Aren't you concerned she might misinterpret this?
Daisy, just because we tied the knot doesn't mean we have to be joined at the hip at every single opportunity.
Don't be ridiculous. Why else would you marry her if you don't want to be with her for the rest of your lives?
Because, Daisy, she also has other things she can do with her life and friends to spend time with. Granted, I don't like some of them, and I have a few of my own she utterly dislikes. But wifey doesn't have to know my every move. Nor do I hers. Do you know how boring that would be? To be with the same person for all hours of the day, losing sleep over the mere fact they're not with you?
I wonder if we'll ever find out if he actually did have a thing with Rochelle.
Or putting everything you have aside to please them? To have your whole world revolve around one person?
Aren't you just mistaking that for something else? Unlike you, there are other people here who don't share the same jaded outlook you have. Don't lump everyone together just because it didn't work out for you.
I mean, I think he's actually making a good point. Like, even if you're married, you don't have to be with someone 24/7.
And you, my dear, are unexpectedly naive.
What's so naive about it? If you love each other, wouldn't you want to always see them, be with them? To have them focus solely on you? Maybe you haven't been loved enough.
Oh, it's that kind of thing for you, isn't it? The love is eternal, love is a strong emotion shite. A starry-eyed girl pining for a dashing Prince Charming? What's next? Romantic confessions of love? A grand wedding on the beach? Dozens of spawns running around in some picturesque home in the suburbs? How quaint. Are you also expecting it's going to be sunshine and rainbows after? A happily ever after? Please.
What? I never once said... And is all of that such a bad thing to hope for?
Woman, I've been married for 7 years, and I'm telling you, it's far from what you have in your pretty red head.
Her hair was pink.
Tell me, how long has this song and dance been going for you and your man? Maybe I am mistaken.
Averting my eyes from him is all I managed to do. What does his mere 7 years have compared to the 17 I've had with Ash? It's laughable he thinks those two things are even comparable. Ash and I may have never moved past the boundaries of friendship, like what I'm hoping for years. But what we have isn't something anyone can scoff at. I've I've always been by his side, endured everything with him. I know him better than anyone. No matter what this man, this complete stranger says, I know there will always be a place for me beside him. And yet...
Come on, Daisy, that shouldn't be too hard. 3, 5, 8, 10, 20.
His words easily seep into my heart like sharp daggers, gradually picking apart everything I've ever been sure of. Despite myself, the doubts resurface, and my defenses crumble right in front of my eyes. It's no wonder he sees through me, and as expected, he ridicules it. Restrained, low and rumbling, a sharp sound striking the air around us amidst the murmur of people and the soft notes of the music playing over our heads. His shoulders shake, and when his mirth becomes too much, even for him, he reaches up a hand and passes it over his face, as if to hold his glee close to him.
Bloody bullocks, this is just brilliant. Oh, Mother, why do I always keep running into these things? This day couldn't get any better.
Sit him with another book.
I think I'm gonna need a stiff drink after this.
He dissolves into another peal of laughter, but when it subsides, what he has for me are more words, scathing, each of them. The urge to run from here has never been this strong.
Is everything you said how you plan to act? If that man of yours ever ends up with you, cling to him? Put him on a bloody pedestal? Let him become the center of your universe? Although with how long this seems to be going on, I think you've already done so. Marriage will just be icing on the top. Like some sort of reward for you, isn't it? For being a good, patient, loyal little girl all this time. Never looking at another man. He must have been having a grand time with someone pining over him this long. I'm a little envious, to be honest. Maybe also a little surprised he hasn't suffocated from all your attention yet.
Laugh all about it if you want. It's not like you'll ever understand.
Luke falls silent. The ridicule in him is gone in an instant, and his eyes meet mine, sharp and imposing. A challenge, but I hold it against him with the same intensity. Because if there's something I won't let his opinion trample on, it's this. What does he know? However, he's the first one who looks away, focusing eyes back to where Kylie is, and for a moment, I believe I've won. Until he draws in a breath and turns back to me. The words he drops next, though hushed, hang heavily in the distance between us.
You're right. I won't. But I do know not to mistake love for obsession, woman. They are not the same thing.
It rattles. Out of everything he's said tonight, this is one that twinges my heart. Maybe it's the manner he delivers it, the lack of conceit in his posture, or an underlying insult in the tone he takes. The remark is not meant to cut, merely to express a simple truth. This time, it's him who holds gaze against mine. Another unspoken challenge, and I realize that if this happened minutes before, I'd already have an equally searing retort at the tip of my tongue. There's none. But the anger is there, ringing at my insides, prodding at the uncertainties I've long kept. Isn't it enough? We have long years we've been together. We have the memories. Whenever he needs me, until other people came in between us, I've always been the one there. The dedication and loyalty should mean something, shouldn't it? I've always been sure of it, and that one day, he'll see it for what it is. In spite of that, in this minute, under this man's scrutiny, my own heart wavers. Now I struggle to find the words. I'm not sure if this is a spoken thing, because, like, I feel like I would not have an answer, like I'd be really quiet. So, what this? Oh yeah, we've lost him. Okay, good. However, those are for me to ponder on. This arse doesn't need to hear them, and neither is he entitled to them just because he dished out some profound-sounding life wisdom that no one asked for. But he's right, though. Like, in spite of everything, he is right. So I look away, hoping my own silence would be enough of an answer for him. And it is, for a moment, up until warm, furious tears prickle behind my eyes, stinging, begging for release, along with every other frustration this dumb talk has built up in me. All because of this man. I hate him. I hate the fact that he has to be the one to see me in this sorry state. I'm already expecting another barb for him when his expression shifts. Except he panics. In the span of 3 seconds, his expression changes from indifferent to concerned, utter panic. It'd probably have been funny if I weren't so irked by the sight of this glycid bastard.
Hey, are you crying? Are you going to cry? Stop that right now, woman, or I'll...
Will you shut up?
He clams up almost before I could finish. Whether this is due to the sudden force of my voice or how I look, I pretend not to think of it. He seems like a deer caught in the headlights with the way he's making him smell smaller in his seat. But I'm still pissed. I'm tired, and if I can't punch him, I can at least scream at him.
You're an annoying bag of dick, you know that? If I hear another word from you, I'm sewing that bloody mouth shut myself!
This must be a fun cafe to be at. It does do the trick. Not to the effect I'd hoped, but the moment I've snapped him, the stinging at the back of my eyes melts away and a strange calm overcomes me, a fragile thing when found in the middle of a busy coffee shop. Nevertheless, it's appreciated considering that it doesn't last, immediately broken by the very person that put me in this state with a few awkward pats to my shoulder. Done twice, thrice, and another, until my patience runs out again and I'm pulling out the book from my bag, raising it threateningly over his head. I'll surely dent his skull if I slam it down at this height. Part of me wants to see that, but I restrain myself. He has the good sense to recoil, though. Shortly, he shrinks back to his seat and waves his hand in front of him, a gesture of surrender.
Watch that book, woman! I already warned you about your little threats. You don't want to see my brand of angry!
I like these two together.
Then keep your hands to yourself!
I mean, he was only trying to be nice.
All right, that's it. People these days. I swear you treat them nicely, and this is where it gets me.
You're the last person I'd ever want to comfort me. Even if we're the only two remaining people on Earth, don't flatter yourself.
Okay, have it your way, Daisy.
And stop calling me Daisy! I have a name, you know!
He probably doesn't remember it. He mutters something inaudible under his breath, although afterwards he doesn't say anything further. For the next minute, he simply contents himself with making a mess out of the paper napkins, folding them into clean shapes without any clear intent before crumpling them in his hand when he loses interest and dumping them in a small pile before him. A waiter serves our meal soon enough, and Kylie makes her way back to our table. But before I can take a single bite, he mutters something. Words spoken in the same tone he's used since morning, all under his breath, whatever the honest part of himself would show. Despite rather confusing opinion of the man, I stop short of shoving food in my mouth to look at him. His eyes are on the food as he speaks, busying himself with cutting a portion of meat on his plate. What comes out of him only rings true against my ears with the din of the coffee.
For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't ever think that's all there is to you. Why else would I leave my own goddaughter in your care if you're just some lovesick woman?
He spears a piece of his food, pops it into his mouth, and that's it. One whole day with this man, I still can't figure what his deal is. For what it's worth, as well, I don't think he's an entirely bad guy. The rest of our meal slips by in silence afterwards. Aside from Kylie's occasional chatter, the whole dinner goes by without another word exchanged between the two of us. Somehow, we managed to make it through the whole thing without triggering another tension-riddled conversation. A good thing, perhaps. One, because Kylie's sitting in front of us, and two, I probably won't be able to hold a proper conversation with my mind heavy with thoughts. We depart from the coffee house just as the evening crowd starts to thin out. The same wordless silence fills our short walk back to the school, except for when Luke gestures at a nearby flower shop and enters it without waiting for Kylie and I. He emerges minutes later carrying a bouquet of daffodils, with the same softened expression back on his face. Unlike the previous ones, he tucks this one away almost as soon as he looks up at us, a moment he's not willing to share. At my confusion, he merely answers with a shrug and continues
For
walking.
someone important.
I accept it for what it is, if only because he doesn't owe me an explanation. He does leave more questions about him, each one as baffling as the previous ones. This was the last words spoken this evening before we head our own ways. Up until I arrive home, I still can't understand him. Here, however, a whole different set of questions await me. And much like everything today, it comes with the littlest of things. A lone note greets me upon reaching my unit's door, its edges flutter lightly against the faint warm breeze passing through the small complex. My hand stops short of twisting the knob as I stare at it, though I don't make any moves to take it. Ashton's neat script lines the surface. Dropped by earlier, you weren't around. Any idea where Scaredy Cat is? I couldn't contact her. Inspector Abigail has a few questions. LBD stuff. Something about her dead co-workers. Anyway, let me know how the two of you have been doing. I'll see you later, Ash. I like the little emoticon he wrote. The message he left, short and straight to the point, but not without the underlying hint of friendship. He's looking for Isabella, apparently. Something about LPD's investigation of her co-worker's death, but ends in a formal tone by checking on me. Us. Any other day, the former part of this message would likely prod at the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Wait. This does not look like Luke. Where's Kylie's ribbons? Luke and Kylie invite Rebecca for dinner as she was about to leave. Despite receiving a text from Ashton, Rebecca agreed and the three spent the evening at a nearby coffee house. Upon returning to her flat, she found a note that Ashton left her. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Yet this time, only guilt fills me and my eyes briefly shift towards Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't ever think that's all there is to you. Why else would I leave my own goddaughter in your care if you're just some lovesick woman?
Have I always been like this?
I do kind of feel for her, like having a crush on a close friend, but not really, like just wanting him to notice and not being able to bring it up yourself. Especially since it kind of seems like he has a thing for Isabella. Is selfish? In truth, I've intended to call Ash after that dinner. If I didn't catch him here, invite him to that party like I planned. There's time, and he's still probably awake at around this hour. I think she still doesn't realize that that's Luke's party. But my hands won't move, and perhaps it is for the better. Until I've had time to think this through, it would be best if I distanced myself from those I've been clinging tightly to. Find a different perspective and see things for what they are. With a soft sigh, I reach for the note and crumple it under my hand. The knob twists open with much ease when I enter this time. Maybe after some introspection, it'll be easier. For tomorrow, I have that woman in the mansion to worry about. I'd keep the note. It's got a cute drawing on it. The night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Come morning, there's only a hush, a strange sort of stillness unlike the ones greeting me every morn. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. As expected, the second I step out of my flat, it comes apart, broken by the voices of two squabbling adults echoing from a floor below. The quiet was nice while it lasted. Shame.
What the hell were you thinking?
That sounds like Ashton, so I'm guessing it's gonna be him arguing with Isabella.
I wasn't. Ow! Could you let go?
Not a few seconds later, they both ascend the stairs, with Ashton pulling Isabella by her wrist. She struggles as she should, but his hold on her remains firm. Freeing herself means having to draw blood as she attempts to pry his hand off with her other one, using unnecessary force to push herself away. Neither of which is better than the other. One could potentially end in an accident, while the other means having to hurt him physically. She has the good sense to realize that at least, however it doesn't take the desperate edge in her voice when she answers Ashton's temper with her own. So on they go, none the wiser in my presence.
You have any idea how much trouble you could get in?
That's why I'm asking you for help.
Is this what you've been doing these past 3 days? Because this doesn't make your case convincing, Isabella.
He still hasn't had a run-in with the ghost.
Rose died, Ash.
I know. Every single person in Luxford knows. It's on the damn news. But that doesn't mean...
People are missing. Some of those are my friends. And BRC's just covering it all up.
You can't just barge into my office and expect me to do anything about it, right off the bat.
It's kind of your job.
This isn't a children's game, Isabella. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol. There's red tape all over this case for a reason.
He doesn't strike me as the type who would follow protocol.
We sure as hell don't investigate things just because some stupid letter spooked us.
Ash, you have to believe me this time. If we don't do anything right now, more people will...
It's been a whole week. This stupid letter prank is getting old real fast. I'm sick of it. It was funny the first time, not so much now.
When was it ever funny?
You're the only one that can help me with this, Ash. Even Rebecca won't.
All right, you two are awfully loud.
Yeah, how are the neighbors not ticked?
What's going on here?
Both of their heads snap up almost in unison. A displeased frown is on each of their faces, but this is a necessary interruption. What can they do? People still in their units have already taken interest on the commotion, with some taking a peek behind their curtains, while others are bold enough to creak open their doors if only slightly. If they don't keep it down, pretty soon our landlady will show up. Getting a reprimand from her is the last thing I want to happen, first thing on a Friday morning, even if it is hardly my fault.
Well, if you want to continue this, you two better do it elsewhere. You're disturbing other people.
Don't worry, we're done here.
No, we aren't. Becca, I looked it up. I called them. I visited some of them and...
Which you shouldn't have done in the first place. Isabella, you're going to create more problems for us with what you're doing. A team has already been assigned to it. Leave it to us.
Your precious team is looking at it the wrong way. Becca, it's not just Rose. There are others.
That last bit strikes a chord, prods strongly at a memory, and that vicious smile already etched deeply inside my mind. The image appears clear enough that, at the mere mention of it, I stumble on my own question.
What do you mean?
The letter, Rebecca! It's not...
It's nothing. If there's really something going on because of that dumb letter, none of us would be standing here. We've all read it, haven't we?
Look though, ghost lady. Like, it's like the 27th, and it's clear you have not appeared before Ash. Like, why? He's the one we really need you to annoy him.
But Rebecca's alive. Zach's alive. I'm alive. So for the last time, this isn't a curse.
It takes 7 days, Ash.
There's a murderer on the loose, and your co-workers happen to be the victims. Give it a rest, Isabella. It's too early for this shit.
It's like, what did I ever see in him?
Do you think that's too much for a coincidence?
Not so much. Most serial killers follow a pattern. I'll tell you about it some other time. And anyway, coincidence or not, the point is, civilians like you aren't supposed to get involved. You're putting yourself in danger.
See, this is modern day Castlevania, where the Belmonts no longer believe in the supernatural, and now they're just doubtful cop people.
I wasn't chasing after...
Will the both of you slow down and stop arguing for a minute? What's this about your coworkers, Belle?
Becca, please don't tell me now you believe this shit.
Sure, in a heartbeat, I'll agree with Ashton. That's how it has always been, besides having a very good point. Really, they're the very same ones he'll make every time I ask too many questions. But the fact of the matter is, what he wants to hear from me right now is far from what I've been seeing, sensing these past few days. It doesn't matter what Isabella or I believe on our own. Something odd has been happening around me, and that letter she picked up is at the heart of this. I gotta be honest, I might have seen her. Ashton's gonna be mad! Ashton in particular won't be too happy to hear it. Yep. But forget you, Ashton, I'm gonna be honest. Imagining the look on his face doesn't take too much effort. His entire posture shifts the moment my reluctance shows, shoulders tensing, brows furrowing, eyes gaining a sharp edge. He's already bracing himself for the disappointment. And it will be a disappointment. Not in a million years did I ever believe I'd be saying this either.
I might have seen her. The woman Belle's been telling us about. The one she said she saw in the attic.
Both of them stare at me like I've grown an extra head, and for a few moments Ashton looks as if he's about to have a fit. A pause treads at its heels after, a silence thick enough one can almost hear a pin drop.
You're kidding, right?
Do I look like I'm joking?
Really, Becca? Not funny.
Ash, I'm not lying. Why would I lie about this? It's been this way since the film fest. The past few days have been really odd since we read that letter.
Or maybe you're all just feeling under the weather.
I'm not sick. Don't you think I'd know that by now?
Becca, you're starting to sound like Scaredy Cat. Give me a break.
Why don't you?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, you two.
Isabella's voice cut sharply through the conversation, abruptly putting an end to the brewing argument.
It's all my fault. This is all my fault. I was only hoping I could fix this before any of you. I'm sorry for dragging you all into this.
She breathes in, deep, steadying, and in that moment something falls behind her eyes as she looks away.
I'll fix this. I promise.
Quiet resolve. The same one I saw in her that night from 3 days ago. But this time it burns brighter. Even Ashton wavers at its sight. When she looks at him straight in the eye, gaze unflinching. Gradually his grip on her wrist loosens.
Belle, there's nothing to fix. The problem is...
Just this once, Ash.
Her voice, though small and lacking any force, stops him. Along with it, every sound, every noise dies around us, a hush descending as if the world is waiting for her words, and then it just cuts to all the people peeking out of their apartments.
You don't have to come with me, but if I don't do anything, I am going to regret it.
She lays a hand atop his, gentle, fleeting, almost intimate if one does not consider the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Please.
Ashton will never tell a soul, will never admit it even to himself, but it is in that short second that his own resolve breaks. The moment the hard edge in his eye softens and he relinquishes his hold on her, letting his hand fall limply to his side. Wordlessly, Isabella steps back and runs off, leaving only a muttered thanks and a small, lackluster smile. Only after the last of her footsteps fade away does Ashton move, breaking the silence with one of his sharp exhales before reaching up to pinch the bridge of his nose in a gesture of frustration and surrender.
Did you really have to tell her that?
What do you want to hear from me then? That everything's fine?
No, I want all of you to stop putting these ideas in her head. None of it is helping. Never mind. Don't worry about her. I'll bring her back here.
He's already poised to leave when my own instinct takes over. I reach for him, gripping his elbow with the same unyielding grip, the action prompted by voices whispering at the back of my mind. He's already made it clear he's not going to believe me, but he deserves a word of caution. Who knows where all this will take us, how all this will end. He shouldn't be caught off guard, but at least not
Ash, I know you don't believe in those things she's saying. And you know me. I'm less inclined to believe in those things as you do. But I've seen something. There's something strange going on here. You don't have to buy it. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But please, try to hear her out. It's bad enough that Isabella goes off like this without telling anyone. I'm just worried something might happen to her if she keeps at it. Talk to her, okay?
As if she trusts me enough for that.
Doesn't the fact that she approached you first about this, instead of me, already say a lot?
And you kicked her down. A different kind of trust, granted implicitly and never spoken, sometimes too big, too fragile to last. He falls silent for a long moment as he turns it over in his mind. In the end, all he manages to offer is a small nod before he departs, and a promise to, at least, listen to her, without the teasing or the jibes. A favor for me and the least he could do for her. This is as much as I can do for him as well, until I've understood what's happening myself. Tonight, hopefully, where this all started will provide the answers I'm looking for. Oh, maybe this is the new one. Isabella and Ashton arrived at Salem Well, having an argument about the missing BRC employee's investigation. Annoyed by the noise, Rebecca interfered and, in the end, asked Ashton to keep an open mind. Briefly paused for a second there. So, we're at the mansion now, and probably thinking, boy, aren't we happy we're not gonna run into Luke. Anyway, except the whole thing's off to a bad start, and all of a sudden, whatever Isabella's claims dwelling in this mansion become the least of my concerns. Of all the cabbies in Lexborn, I have to chance upon the superstitious one. It's not as bad as finding out your car's starter refuses to crank on when it was still working this morning, yes? But it's equally as frustrating when you're forced to walk the rest of the way. All because the driver got spooked. Isabella and him will get along so well. I do get his reasons. After all, I've had my fair taste of the bazaar lately, all of which might have been brought up by the letter Isabella found here. But you'd think he'd at least be charitable enough to take me a little closer to the house itself, not at a distance 15s away from it by foot. Good thing I'm not wearing anything too formal or constricting. This dude better not have made us pay him if he did that. Otherwise, that short walk would have likely put me in a bad mood, long before I have to suffer in a room full of strangers tonight. Although this soon proves to be a problem the second the driveway comes into view and I near the entrance. Severely underdressed is a total understatement to describe how I look. I mean, it's a housewarming party and you're just wearing your normal clothes. Like, I'm not saying you needed to come in a gown, but... Cars worth more than my own apartment and childhood home combined line the mansion's front yard. Men and women decked out in their best also flock near the entrance. Most are eager for the festivities to start, while some are simply idling about, enjoying the warm afternoon sun before it sets. And once the woman standing at the front porch speaks, their undivided attention immediately shifts to her. Presumably Mrs. Wright, from the confident manner she holds herself among present company. This, despite keeping a far simpler appearance than the rest of her own guests or not having her husband beside her. A trait worthy of utmost admiration at best. At worst, she's the envy of every woman, the subject of every gossip in Luxbourne.
Welcome everyone!
As Mom said we could have been good friends? I can't even picture myself mingling with the kind of guest she has. Though I admit she does seem familiar now that I've seen her this close. Memories of sitting in a vanity not mine, being dressed in clothes too fancy for my tastes. They flit briefly in my mind until her cheerful tone rises above the buzz of her enraptured audience again.
Please, make yourselves at home!
I wish I could share her enthusiasm, really. Being surrounded by all this extravagance, for the lack of a better term, really makes me dread how the rest of the night might go. I shouldn't have let Luke's words affect me like that. Should have just gone ahead and asked Ashton like I've planned. If he were here, then I won't have to.
Be careful with Shirley, alright?
I knew he was here! I was like, didn't we come together? The rest of that thought dies in my mind at once. A moment of astonishment overcomes me, before confusion sets in seconds later. It takes another for my body to catch up. Once it does, when I finally turn to see it for myself, it's his familiar mop of hair that catches my eyes first. And there he is, almost at arm's reach if it isn't for the guest standing between us. Ashton Frey, standing in the Ermengarde Mansion's driveway with an air too lackadaisical for someone who absolutely abhors parties of any form. Or has any business here as far as I know. The picture it forms is too bizarre for me, that my mouth speaks out ahead of many coherent thoughts.
Ashton?
He swivels on his heels with an equally puzzled face. An odd expression flashes momentarily across it once he sees me, but he blinks it away before I can figure out what it is exactly.
Becca, what are you doing here?
I was invited.
Really? I had no idea you were friends with the host.
Well, it's my parents, actually. But that's beside the point. What are you doing here? You hate parties.
I still do. I'm just here on behalf of a friend.
That, in itself, is weird coming from him. It doesn't help that he isn't even making an effort to spare a glance my way when he answers. Instead, they're focused at some point in the crowd. His gaze darting between people walking past us until a small frown forms in his face.
That's rare. Do you have someone with you then?
Nope, just me. I won't be staying long.
Well, if that's the case, maybe you and I can...
Chief?
Ashton, what's...
Unexpectedly, he places a hand on my shoulder, stopping in mid-sentence. He still has the distracted look on him, except this time his eyes are sharper, as if he has found what or who he's been searching for among the throng of partygoers earlier.
Sorry, Becca. I need to... There's something I need to check for a bit. I'll talk to you later.
You won't.
Do you have a ride home?
No, I had to take a cab here. My car wouldn't stop this afternoon. But what about...
I told you to get that old thing checked before, didn't I? You can head back with me after this.
You better not ditch me.
Anyway, I gotta go. See ya. Be careful, okay?
I meet the smile he hastily throws my way with a frown of my own. What does he mean by that? But before I could ask already, he has turned his back on me and is walking away, without a single explanation whatsoever. In some desperate effort, I try to catch up to him. If only to know what warranted this sudden departure and his odd warning at the end.
Hey, be careful! About what exact...
She shouts across the yard, only for my attempts to be interrupted by a muffled ringing from my pocket. Mom's cheerful voice greets me as soon as I answer.
Yes, I'm at the party already, Mom. Yes, I'll say hi to her if I can.
The conversation itself doesn't last long. Just a simple hello, a reminder to enjoy the party, and to send their regards to their old student. But when the call ends and I get to look up, Ashton's already nowhere in sight. With a sigh and admittedly a little disappointment, I tuck my mobile back in my pocket and head inside. Even with familiar company, however coincidental this meeting is, this is somehow shaping up to be a terrible evening. I'm gonna pause and check the time on this. It's still got time. I wonder if we're to see the awkward drunk scene again. The party hits full swing an hour later. With the host's opening remarks given, still no sign of her husband, that poor woman. Does she not know who her husband is yet? And the guests promptly fed, the band shifts the melody to a livelier tune. Soon, laughter and the rhythmic tapping of shoes fill the room, all in accordance to the lifting strains of music. It seems fun, I admit. Fascinating at certain moments, the flurry of dancers making the music their own, almost with no care in the world. If I weren't so indisposed, I'd have joined the crowd for a song or two. There isn't a lack of invitations anyway, plenty of them in fact, with some asking more than once. It's only my stubborn refusal that prevents me from joining them, and I can. A single nod is all it'll take, and the evening would have been far more enjoyable for me. The pride in my own silly hopes, the thought of being seen with one of them by him curbs that, as much as I hate to admit it. Girl, you gotta move on. Because doing so also means outright acknowledging the douche's claims. But he has to be the one to tell me that still sends my blood boiling. I would have preferred someone more agreeable, less of an arse. It's a hard truth to swallow, especially when the very person at the center of it makes denial difficult. Can't even spare me a minute of his attention or a single glance at me the whole evening. Hell, Zachary might have spoken more words to me. The big guy's busy covering the event to boot. But at least he manages to slip in a conversation or two between takes, or a small wave of his hand when he passes by. What's Ashton's excuse? I really need to interact more with Zach as Rebecca. He's been flitting in and out of sight the whole time. One moment he's hanging around with a small group, in another he's hovering around the string band. Just a second ago he's wolfing down some deviled eggs by the buffet table, a glass of wine in hand. Next thing I know, he's gone. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he doesn't want to be with any of his friends. He's trying to find Dracula, I'm telling you. Is it because his boss is here? What's the big deal about that? It's never bothered him before.
I swear, the next person who asks, I'm dancing the night away with. Ashton can go fuck himself.
I really hope Luke just shows up and is like, hey, wanna dance?
You would catch his eye a lot better if you wore nicer clothes, don't you think?
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be Hannah, but it would have been funny. Somebody write that fanfic. Her voice almost makes me jump, too focused on the gobshite wandering around the ballroom and my own annoyance to notice. If she's heard any of the profanities I've mumbled, or she's taken note of my discomfiture, she makes no comment of it, merely greeting me with a smile when I turn my attention to her. Miss Hannah Wright gives off a whole different air when she's not speaking to an audience. Homely, a bit too friendly for my liking, but I guess that comes from being raised in such an environment and having to deal with pompous, snooty people. Though I suppose nothing has really changed from years ago. I remember her carrying herself in the same manner during that one and only visit. Does she remember any of it? I won't be surprised if she doesn't. It's taken me a while myself. She's probably met a lot of people like little Becky throughout the years. Might have already forgotten about me or my parents. People like her thrive on connections, after all. Nevertheless, I return her smile, awkward and stiff as it may be.
Didn't realize the housewarming was going to be this fancy. I would have gone with a nice dress if I knew.
Oh, you're fine, dearie. It's only really the parvenu, those who climb, that come to these parties all dolled up. Quite the black-haired beauty, isn't he?
It takes me a while to realize who she's talking about, until Ashton walks by again in closer proximity than any of the times he's done so far this evening. Still without a look of acknowledgement our way, though, even if Miss Wright speaks loud enough to catch the attention of anyone within earshot. You know, if we danced with Luke and Ashton saw, that would be hysterical.
Who, Ash?
Ash would be mad.
You know, you really shouldn't have turned down those offers. If I wasn't married, I'd happily go dancing with those young men. But you said a name. Ash. That's the exquisite lad you've been looking at all this time. I don't know him, and I'm the one hosting this party. That must mean you know each other. Is he your boyfriend then? Because that would explain those rejections.
Rebecca's all mad. This isn't the first time someone has made that assumption. Almost every student I've had in the past did. My coworkers more often than not assume he is. A few of my neighbors also think we're an item. Not that Ashton has ever reacted to those. He's been quite indifferent about it, in fact. Still, the heat of a blush creeps up my cheeks, a denial ready despite wanting it to happen so badly myself.
What? No, that's ridiculous. He isn't my boyfriend.
Such a violent reaction. A simple no would have sufficed. Many here would be happy to hear it.
And I haven't been looking at him.
You have. I do my best to summon a straight face, but for her good cheer, it easily falters.
That's right. You've been staring. Quite heatedly, in fact. Although I'm not sure if you look like you want to kiss him or kill him.
It's more the latter currently.
Just don't go murdering him on my property. I don't want to walk into a room and suddenly find a body there.
It's infectious in a way. No sooner I find myself enjoying her chat more than I've imagined myself to. Although her attention briefly wavers at one point, she remains a good companion. Even more once I've mentioned who my parents are. Her face quickly lights up and fondness graces her face, despite the meeting from several years ago being a short one. But of course, there are some things we really can't avoid talking about. After all, it's one of the few things I remember her asking me the moment she spotted little Becky in the room. Do you have a boyfriend? In retrospect, it's an odd thing to talk about as children, when there are loads we could have started with.
Yes, oh, I remember you! You were the cutest little thing with glasses! And when we met, you were having boy troubles with this lad called something with an A.
I believe I still have the clothes she gave me. Chosen, also I can impress him. And even back then, Ashton was always denser than a rock, and that one attempt to get him to notice backfired spectacularly. Sure, he's keen. He's a detective, for heaven's sake, but feelings, more often than not, escapes him.
What was it again? Aaron, Alan, Adele, Albert, Alexander, Andrew?
Which makes this whole talk all the more embarrassing. And the more names she lists off, the more my discomfort grows until my smile turns into a grimace. What will she think of me? Here she is, married, to a man she most probably loves at that. While I'm still stuck in the same place, yearning for the same person.
Ashton! Ash! That man is that boy! The same one. Oh, goodness me, after all these years!
Maybe she can help us hook up.
I can see why, though. He's quite dashing.
This needs the help of another person.
You don't really need to announce it to everyone within earshot, you know? Keep it down.
I'm so sorry, but it really is cute.
She says that, but for a short moment, a hint of pity flickers in her eyes. I take that as a chance to change the subject before anything more can be said over the matter. I haven't even figured out how I feel about things Luke told me. Now I'm getting dragged into a similar discussion.
This is a nice party, Miss Wright.
Though to be frank, I doubt she'll be so willing to pass this up. The topic has already captured her attention.
Please, Anna's fine. We're friends of a sort, aren't we? We must be friends, seeing as I know about your little infatuation, Becky. Don't you worry, dearie. You'll have your happy ending yet.
I'm not too concerned about that, am I? That's not what I'm looking for.
Oh? And what makes you think that? Doesn't everybody want their happy ending?
The idea of happy endings sounds like they're just for fairy tales.
She was saying earlier.
And they are, sorta. I don't think you can just sit around, trapped in some tower and hope for the best.
Literally what you're doing.
If you love them, you have to fight for it, right? You're not just going to sit there and hope that everything will just fix itself on its own. Like everything, you have to work at it.
This comes across a lot less sincere now that we know the situation she's in. Waiting for him to notice her. Yeah, at least she's acknowledging it. Hypocrisy, that's what this is. How dare you preach about something when it's exactly what I've been doing. And then, I go and act as if I'm entitled to any of it. That by virtue of us growing up together, he must return whatever I feel for him. That he's not allowed to look at another, because I'm the one who has stayed by his side the longest. When in the first place, Ashton has always been his own person. This is something I cannot force on him. I can only hold on to these, take care of it until the time comes I can confess it to him. Great if he reciprocates, but if he can't, if he won't, selfish. I've been too selfish. How laughable that Luke's words still strike true up until now.
But what do I know?
I'm sure the daughter of the two greatest professors I've ever known is smart enough to know what she's talking about.
At one point, maybe I would have easily agreed to that. However, the past weeks have also seen changes in the way I view things. As nice as these things sound, it turns out whatever I previously know may not even be true for other people or for myself. It is sobering and almost funny how things I might have said with much certainty before now has doubts muddying to them. Oh boy. But there will be time to mull about these later, because when a hush suddenly descends in the room, a whole different issue rears. Especially when Luke strides into the now quiet ballroom, fashionably late and oozing with the same pompous mien he always carries around with him.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Enjoying the party? I hope I'm not too late in welcoming you all to the right mansion.
Before long, Hana leaves my side to join him, and it doesn't take a genius to piece it all together.
Welcome one and all to our humble abode. Tonight, if you have yet to find yourself in your roles, you are our ladies and lords of the court of your king and queen, if you would excuse my presumptuousness. So enjoy the feast that has been laid out for your senses, as we only allowed the best to be served. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.
His attitude, the manner he carries himself around people, his unfamiliarity with that part of the city. Of fucking course. I should have known. Although I'm partly at fault here, tabloids and the gossip columns have never really been my thing. I should have also expected that wherever Luke fucking Wright is, some sort of drama will follow. He seems the kind of person who revels in it, figures it'll find him on its own, even when he's not asking for it. We're gonna have to listen to this again? It happens amidst a round of applause and hoots. The people lagging behind the crowd they've gathered does not catch on until the cheers turn into several scandalized gasps.
I am pregnant with your little bastard. You promised me you'll take responsibility. God damn it, Luke. I finally got you to talk to me after months of silence, and you do this to me.
What do you mean you're pregnant with? Luke, is this true?
Lies and slander, woman! Security! Yo, Hans, take her out of here before she makes an even bigger fool of herself!
No, you do not do this to me. I was so ready to leave my stupid oaf of a husband. I told you to leave that damn wife of yours. Look at her. Does she look like she wants a baby? Does she look like she could take care of a baby?
Says the drunk woman. The commotion doesn't go any further, despite the drunk woman appearing like she has plenty more venom to spill. In a little while, security shows up escorting her out. Apparently she's the chief inspector's wife, too. As if this whole thing can't get any more fucked up than it already is. What a mess. The damage has been done, and beyond the repercussions this will bring, I'm more worried about Hana. Maybe Luke too, in part. I've seen the man that hides behind his self-importance, and it is someone who cares for the person who stands beside him. No matter how questionable that is now. After all, no anger is worse than that of a scorned woman. He's lucky, though, that he is not to be the object of it anytime soon. That his wife loves him enough not to believe any of the woman's drunken prattle.
Take that troll up out of here immediately, and see to it that she isn't allowed to hear, or anywhere we hold any authority in Luxbourne.
Hannah's outrage is a strange sight to witness after those smiles and the grace she has carried herself through the entirety of the party. Like this, her eyes burn bright with fury. I don't doubt she can do so much more, ruin the scandalous woman if need be. Shaming her is already an act of mercy, generous enough coming from her.
Everyone, please go back to enjoying the party. Don't let that mess of a woman ruin your night.
You heard her! Strike up the band, maestro, and let us dance like fireflies in the night!
Yet, when she turns to Luke, eyes gleaming with hope, something feels off. Something I can't quite place. Hers is not the face of a person who so ardently loves. There's a lack of tenderness in it, an absence of warmth and sincere affection. It's the kind that constricts, suffocates.
Well, that was a mess, wasn't it? And you handled it magnificently.
It happens. We are very important people, are we not?
No one seems to have noticed, however, and at their command, music resumes. There's a brief lull, a reluctant pause before the place comes astir again, but shortly the buzz returns to the ring. Dancers have once again taken to the floor, and their guests' excited chatter begins anew. Maybe it's just my imagination.
Milady, would you like to dance?
With pleasure, my prince.
The unsettling feeling in my stomach remains, however, even as the strained atmosphere dissolves into merriment, even as I watch the couple lose themselves in the moment or the people around them join them in it. It grips me all the more when once I leave the hall, the last glimpse I catch of Hana is her smile, a thin, unearthly one spreading across her soft features. The porter closes the door behind me with a soft click, but all I hear from it are chilling whispers, those that seem to echo with another familiar grin in my mind. Oh boy. She's possessed. The brush of fresh air against my cheeks does little to dampen the nervous edge in my bones. Away from the rush of the party, I just feel bone-tired. It's late, I've accomplished nothing of what I've come here for, and Ashton's nowhere to be found. Not sure what pisses me off more. Did he ignore me the whole evening and might have just left without saying anything? Or knowing he obviously has some other motive for being here? Can he at least trust his own friends for
He
that?
didn't have to hide it from me.
He's not even answering his phone. That man has always been difficult to contact when he's out. But you'd think he'd at least have the decency and keep the lines open if he's going to wander off on a party. One that he happened to attend with his friends at that. I let the call ring for 9 more times before cutting it off. Maybe he's trying to find someone who refuses to be found. I can get home on my own. I don't need him. He can just...
Becca, where'd you go off to?
If you're done here, let's go. I'll get you back to the city.
My mistake. The second his voice cuts through the crisp night air is that I've allowed my annoyance to get the better of me. Fuming, patience forgotten, I whirl around and march towards him. One accusation after another piles up at the tip of my tongue, ready to be hurled at any moment. There's no hesitation holding me back when I fling it at him. That straight face he keeps as I do so doesn't help temper my anger either. It only makes me want to slap some more sense into him.
Shouldn't I be the one asking you that?
Becca, I've been waiting here the whole time. I told you I hate parties like...
Since that mess in the hall, why are we skipping lines?
And before that, where have you been the entire evening?
This doesn't really work in a scenario where you didn't invite him to this party. Like, if you invite him, it makes sense. Right then and there, I might have forgiven him if he'd shown some ounce of remorse for leaving me like that. Maybe he could have looked away, given me a sign that my assumptions might be right. He doesn't even need to put them into words. A single gesture of confirmation is all I need. Rather, what I get is the same impassive look. He does that whenever he can't disclose anything. He does that whenever he's lying. In the face of it, amidst the thick tension, a frustrated huff is the only thing I can say.
Be that way. Fine. Suit yourself.
No more words. After everything I've seen and heard tonight, I'm already too exhausted for those. So without speaking any further, I simply walk past him and stomp over to his car. Although before I can pull open the door, he calls out. One hand outstretched, a gentle weight on my shoulder.
Wait, Becca.
He pauses, his brows furrowing, and the lips curving into a slight frown. I can almost see the gears turning in his head while he tries to piece together everything he wants to say. Before, perhaps, I might have waited patiently for those. He's not a man fond of using words to express himself. More often than not, any gesture of honesty will only come out blunt and coarse when forced. But today, for one reason or another, I simply can't summon that forbearance.
Ashton, if you're just going to waste my time again...
Becca, listen. I don't know how else...
That much is obvious. Why don't you just take the whole bloody night? Go on. I can wait until next year. Better yet, why don't you just keep it all to yourself like you always do? It's not like...
Rebecca, will you hear me out first?
The silence I can offer him. But whether I'll believe what he's about to say is still up for debate. A very long
I
day.
honestly don't know how else to put this. I'm aware your parents have some kind of history with Hana Wright, and somehow you're friends with her. But you should stay away from these people for now. Especially the husband.
Who? Luke?
His expression deepens into a scowl at mention of the name, but whatever opinion he has, he doesn't immediately voice. Still, something about it has greatly displeased him, evident the stiff note in his tone assumes.
Yeah, he's bad news.
I want to say care to explain your
Care to
reasons.
explain your reasons?
Yeah, you better give me a plus. I demand to know why you want me to stay away from him. I've not meant for it to sound as harsh as it does, but anger and frustration have never been a good match in me, particularly in nights like this. It's not surprising when Ashton jerks back as if I've struck him. For a fleeting moment, something akin to hurt darts across his features, his eyes narrowing and hands closing in tightly to a fist at his sides. Then, swiftly, he glances away and shifts his focus on the line of trees nearby, like an answer can be gleaned from the dark expanse.
I'm really sorry, Becca.
What is it for? For the party? The vague answers he continues to give? Does it include all those times before this, the year's worth of it? I don't doubt its sincerity. However, at the moment, the forgiveness he's asking isn't something I'm all too willing to hand, furious as I am. It's frankly a wonder how I can keep myself from raising my voice.
We'll talk about this tomorrow, and you better have a proper answer for me by then.
There's a brief hesitation before I step away, a sharp moment of wanting to say more, of waiting if he has anything to add. He's only silent, I still trend at a distance. It's the last glimpse I see of him before I climb inside his car. If the door slams closed with the same force as the anger I'm holding, its sound merely vanishes into the night, unnoticed. Rebecca found Ashton waiting for her upon exiting the mansion, urged because he was nowhere to be found during the entire party. She demanded to know what was going on. When he wouldn't give her an answer, Rebecca warned that they'd still talk about it some other time. I still think she's acting weird. Like, this only makes sense if she's the one who invited him and she didn't. Like, if you invite him to the party and he ignores you, yeah, you can be angry, but otherwise. We follow soon after and shortly went our way back to the city. Yet even with the city's bright lights welcoming us, the dense, somber air from the mansion still lingers. Let's check the time. We're at 56. I don't know how much longer this is going to go. The moon is almost at its highest by the time we reach Salem Well. Even after our respective heads have cooled off, the atmosphere within the car remains rife with unspoken tension. This isn't a problem so easily fixed with a few handshakes. Quite frankly, I don't know what will. Ashton himself has no idea what to do when he alights and dawdles awkwardly in the middle of the car park, unsure. It almost seems like he's having an internal debate whether he should say goodbye or mutter another apology. I could have driven him away purely out of spite the second I've gotten off. Still, old habits die hard. It's late, and Ashton's flat is on the other side of the city. Irritation might still rear its head every time I look at him right now, but I'm not too cruel to put him up on another long drive. Especially when he still appears as if he hasn't gotten any rest.
You can borrow the couch.
I throw the keys to my flat his way before a purchase forms on his lips. Although he catches it with ease, he eyes it with a weary expression and shoots a puzzled glance my way.
You haven't been forgiven. We're still going to have that talk, believe me. But I'm not about to send you out on another drive looking like that. It's late. Go get some rest.
We're setting aside a lot of loose ends like this, but he appears to have accepted that reason, at least in the meantime. He does give me another questioning glance when I shove past him, pulling my mobile in the
Where are you going? I thought...
You go ahead upstairs. I need to contact Professor Andrew.
Andrew? Why would you... Oh, no. Please. Is this that thing Isabella said this morning? Again? I already gave her my word, Becca. I'll look into this BRC crap. No need to drag the old guy into it.
This came out of nowhere. Of course, he's still skeptical. Makes one wonder if he's even seeing anything at all. Figures this curse will stay away from the scoffer. But this is another loose end tonight that I just can't leave alone, Ashton's beliefs notwithstanding. This just so happens to be one I can delve into using means other than taking a look at the mansion itself.
Ashton, do you really think I still give a shite after that stunt you pulled tonight?
He didn't pull a stunt.
No, but this is...
I spent so many years with him to know that this is about to turn into another argument. Before he can finish it, I cut him off with a firm raise of my hand.
Look, I don't care. There are weird things happening around here. And yes, it's Isabella's brand of weird. Ghostly voices, strange sounds, and a bloody woman sitting at the back of my car. You don't have to believe me. And I no longer have the patience to convince you, so just leave me be, Ashton.
He doesn't push it, going quiet instead, although I know he has a whole case of it prepared inside his head. But there's a reluctant shift in his movements when he steps away from our conversation. Sort of climbing the stairs, he stops, turns to face me with an expression almost too conflicted.
Are you really sure?
What?
That there was something? That you've been, seeing things?
Yes, I'm very, very certain. Now go, and you better not break anything in there. The last time I let you stay over, it was that statuette Belle gave me. You haven't even replaced that one.
The last time our reprimand goes both unheard and unanswered as he disappears behind the stairs. If things weren't strained as he might have a quip or two about that, followed by light banter. Instead, for a long moment, I'm left staring after him. There's something in the way he asks that it nags. Coupled with the expression, the whole exchange just feels unsettling. One that doesn't fade even as I gather my thoughts and shift my focus on another, even as I dial Professor Andrews' number. And that's when it clicks. During the long wait for the professor, one stray thought emerges from the unease. Ashton has not intended for his question to be a jibe. It's concern. For what, though? For my well-being? Blair's curse? The woman I mentioned? The answers for those will have to wait, however. Finally, the call connects and Professor Andrews' voice echoes from the receiver.
Professor Andrew?
Rebecca? It's late. What can I do for you?
I know, I'm sorry, but this is a bit urgent.
After all, this is a more pressing matter. Our lives might be at stake and we're still in the dark.
Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you to do me a favor.
How do we know him? So we're gonna end this part here. Sad we didn't have even more interaction with Luke at the party, but I guess that would have been weird following the encounter with the woman, with Rochelle. I would have liked to talk to him about it, because I want someone to ask him if it's true. But, you know, leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!